Welcome back to the Celtics Nation Rise Podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Aldrich. Alongside me is my co-host, Seamus Zarlingo and Andrew Quinn. And today we have a very special guest today. We have NBC 10 Boston reporter here, Malcolm Johnson. Thank you so much for joining the show. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're going to kickstart it and ask you some questions. And thank you again so much for joining us today. So I wanted to kind of start it off. I'm a management major, and I obviously am looking into jobs like this. So my first question for you is, what is a day in the life of being a reporter? What is your typical routine between appearing in the field and in the studio? How do you balance the two different environments of coverage, and how is your assignments determined?
Okay. So I'll first start with what my typical day is like. There is no real routine because every day is a little bit different. There are days like the one where we met you and we're talking about the Celtics in the playoffs. And there are other days where I'm in court for example, on Friday, I was covering a guy who owns his own shack and food shack on the beach on the Cape and also was the food management coordinator for Plymouth County Schools, and he was stealing a bunch of food from Plymouth County Schools and using it to supply his Beach Shack restaurant. And so, like, every day is different. He was stealing refrigerators and lobster meat, and then the next day, I just got an email from the NBA saying your credential for the NBA Finals can't go through. We're sorry because your team didn't make it. So I would have been at the NBA Finals if the Celtics went. There really is no routine. It's constantly different. And that's what I love about it because I don't have the personality that really would work well sitting at a desk for 8 hours. So I love it. I'm always meeting new people. I'm in different environments. I can be with mayors. I can be with criminals. I can be with athletes. I can be with lawyers. I can be with doctors. I can be with junkies, literal junkies, not sports junkies and like actually, you know what I mean? It covers the gamut. And for me, that helps me just have perspective on life. I try not to judge because I meet so many people from different places who walk different walks. And it just allows me to meet and greet people with a sense of humility and understanding. And then how do I balance the inside versus the outside? So a lot of days I'm in the field and also a lot of days I anchor. The inside is a lot easier. It's climate controlled. The air conditioner is on. I'm reading from a teleprompter. The most important thing for me is to be a point guard, to hand content and materials off to the people around me. So like Ernie Johnson is the best point guard. He doesn't say too much, but he says all the right things. And he lets Kenny and Chuck and Shaq be them. And all the while he's dishing off assists at an amazing, graceful rate. That's the job as an anchor, is to be the point guard, kind of the quarterback. I think those are all your questions, right?
Yeah, of course. And I obviously forgot to mention too at the beginning, you and I met actually in the streets of Boston. You interviewed me before that Knicks Celtics series. I was saying I thought it was going to be the Knicks and Celtics. So that was the first time we actually met. And again, thank you so much for joining the show. But Seamus and Andrew, they're going to ask you some questions and we'll go around. So Seamus.
No, first off, thank you, Malcolm, for coming on the program. It really means a lot to us. But
Thank
what
you for having me, man.
ultimately sparked your passion to become an on-air journalist? We often ask people if they chose the path of media or if the path of media chose them. What does your path look like into the world of media within your life? Did the path of media choose you, or did you choose the path of media?
Man, that's a good question. I think it was a combination. My dad is a photographer, he's retired now. And so he traveled around the world covering stories from Africa to Germany, wars in Afghanistan. And that gave me a lot of just appreciation for storytelling. And I'm from Washington, D.C., so he would take me to really cool events in the city. And he would also take me to the hood to show, like, hey, you've got it pretty good. So we would go to the west side of Baltimore, and he would show me these crazy scenarios that were unfortunate but real life. So in that way, it kind of chose me. And my mom is also a journalist. She works at the Federal Communications Commission, and there's an attorney there, and they essentially make media laws. So all the laws that we have to abide by, or else we will get sued by the FCC, she works with that organization, that federal portion of the government. And then personally, I think I chose it because I was not a huge student, but I watched Sports Center constantly. Stuart Scott was like my role model growing up, in addition to my parents. And I was late all the time to school and was not apologetic about it because I was watching Sports Center. That was it. And so for me and my best friends, we watched Sports Center and we read the Washington Post. That's what we did. And if we passed classes, cool. If we didn't, so be it. We just needed a 2.0 to play sports. And I'm not suggesting that any people watching this podcast live by those rules. That's what worked for me. I liked reading and I liked watching sports and playing them. I played basketball and lacrosse. And so because of that, I knew I wanted to do something in sports. And I got to do that a lot in the early days of my career. I covered the Georgetown Hoyas growing up. I covered the Washington, then Redskins, now Commanders, and the Wizards. And all three of them were terrible, but it didn't matter because I grew up loving these teams, and the culture and tradition in my city, I think is unmatched. You guys would argue, obviously, from Boston. But yeah, to work in sports in my city, I think gave me a huge appreciation for this business.
That's incredible. I will have to say, I agree with you with that sports aspect. Geez, when I was in high school, yeah, I still cared about school, but geez, sports, that's what keeps a lot of people in it, I feel like. It really does. You
Sure.
gotta keep your grades up to play sports. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, so, you mentioned your love of sports, and that's how it fueled you. How would you, deem the importance of passion? I mean, within your job, but just in any job within, the journalism field and elsewhere.
Yeah. I think without the passion, your success could be plateaued. And it might be limited. Or you might be able to compartmentalize really well and succeed at high levels in something you don't love. I think there's a lot of people in our country who do things they don't love. But I knew I wouldn't get far if I did that. I could, work in a number of different industries, given my skill set and contacts. But because I love journalism and storytelling, I'm able to not really work. I just do the things that I like to do. Like, I dig this. And I would say for any young person, you're going to spend a lot of your time at work. Like, a lot of your living hours are going to be working. And so you might as well do something you love doing. And you guys love sports. And for me, it was like a non-negotiable. I just knew in 10th, 11th, 12th grade, what else am I going to do other than talk about sports? That was like it. I was like, I don't know what else I can do. And so I chased that down with like a vengeance. I was on it. You know what I mean? I learned what I needed to. I met who I wanted to, and I stayed curious, ambitious, and humble. And I think we can choose to do what we want, but the passion has to be a part of it.
Very, very great answer. I agree. Like, I feel like I was doing a lot of things I didn't like, but actually going into sports is my passion, and that's what I love. But obviously, you already talked about the hardships of this job a little bit. You kind of talked about, the challenges you face. But to kind of capitalize on that, what are the hardships in your job, and what are the struggles you deal with on a day-to-day basis? Obviously, you talked about kind of some of the unfortunate situations that you have to cover and everything, but what are the struggles in that?
Well, a lot of people have mental health issues in my field. I can't say that I have them, but I'm understanding and sympathetic of people who do because of the things that we see, right? Like, I've seen several people, to be candid, I've gone to like multiple death sentences in Georgia and seen people take the chair. I've seen people win the lottery and come up on millions. I've spoken in more living rooms with mothers who have lost kids than I can count. So like, you have to really compartmentalize, maybe even to a fault, because I see the things that I do. Like I pull up on crime scenes all the time where there's yellow tape in a body bag. And so that's difficult. And I think when I was younger, I used to take it home with me. But as I've grown older, I've realized I have to keep a lot of it at the door. But I can't disassociate, because then I wouldn't be human and I wouldn't be able to convey the emotions and feelings of the things that I see on air. And that's part of my job, is to bring you where I'm at. So yeah, that's difficult. But now, like I'm pretty good at the compartmentalization, for better or worse. And then there's daily pressure on my job. It all depends on how you internalize it, but we have deadlines in journalism. If you're on the 4 o'clock news, you have to have everything ready to be on TV at 4. If you're on the 5, same thing. 6 o'clock, same thing. 11 o'clock, same thing. Whatever hour of news you're on, if you don't meet your deadlines, you'll get fired. It's that simple. So I make a living by making my deadlines. And I have a lot of sources and contacts to call on stories when I need them to meet those deadlines.
Hey, you've talked about some of your versatility already, being in the field or in studio. What are some of the challenges, the different challenges that meet you from covering things in the field and then covering things in the studio? You already touched on this a little bit, but what are some of the more, nuanced challenges to either covering something spontaneously or covering something that's a little bit more tight knit and structured, say for, the 4, 5, or 6 o'clock news?
Mm. Yeah, I think when it's more structured, you're then becoming an expert at the art of doing what you know is coming, essentially. So, like a 4 o'clock show in the studio, most of it is already written. If I'm anchoring the show, we're writing it for hours on the day between producers. I might add to it a little bit, but producers write the show. I sit on the desk, and it's my job to tastefully and artfully present it in a way that's compelling to like thousands of people, because every day thousands of people are watching. That's another thing I should add, is like there's no off days in TV, right? Like in a lot of jobs, if you're not feeling it as a human, we all have on days and off days. I can have off days, but people are watching. Thousands of people are watching. So you just have to, like, being on, quote unquote, you kind of have to be on all the time, because there's people are watching. So yeah, I think there's an art to delivering the news in the studio in a way that makes people want to watch you. But people are subjective. Like some people might feel me and other people might not. That's not my business. I can only be me. And then out in the field, you have to have a really quick processor. So I'll give you a breaking news scene, for example. Say I am called out to Waltham and there's a man sitting in a truck, and he's sitting in the passenger seat, and ICE agents come up to the truck and they ask him to get out, and he doesn't get out. So they break the glass to get him so that they can apprehend him and bring him in for questioning, which is something that happened earlier in the month. And I get there at 4:50, and this thing happened at 4:42. And I get a press release by 4:55. And I'm on TV at 5. Does that synopsis make sense?
Oh,
You got
yes.
4:52, incident happens, 4:55, I arrive, 5 o'clock, I'm on TV. I have to process all these things within a 5 to 7 minute span, so that at 5:01, when they come to me, Malcolm, you're in Waltham, what happened? I have to be able to see, interpret, comprehend, and then regurgitate in a way that our audience understands. So your processor has to be quick. And because of that, I'm not the smartest in the world, but I don't like cut any breaks. So I try and eat right. I try and sleep right. I try and do the things that allow my mind to think and move quickly, because if not, I will make mistakes.
And you talk about, the infield reporting. What is the most challenging or intense story you've actually covered in the field during your time out and about? I mean, you've been at obviously multiple different news stations and covered many different stories along the way, but what is one of the more challenging and intense stories you've ever covered?
I think in 2016, when President Trump was campaigning the first time around, and I was reporting in Fort Myers, Florida, There was a lot of animosity towards the media at the time, and a lot of people did not like us. Um, and so the president was very popular in Florida, which he went on to beat then Senator Marco Rubio in his home state. And he won in the presidential election. Well, in the campaign events leading up to the general election, of which there were many, because he really wanted to win Florida. He's got Mar-a-Lago in West Palm, and he's got multiple golf courses in the state. So he went hard at Florida. In New York and Florida, a huge pipeline there. So I think historically he had a huge representation in Florida. Nonetheless, just reporting at these campaign events, when like thousands of people are looking at you and saying you suck and saying F you and saying all these things, that's a moment where you pick your pants up or you cower. And I've had enough moments where I've had to pick my pants up and can say, okay, this is the arena we're in. And you just meet the moment. And I think those moments help me compartmentalize. I don't want to liken it to an NBA game in any way, even though there are a lot of similarities between our businesses. Like I have an agent, I have contracts, I have times on my contracts. Our books are managed, and people are cut the way Drew Holiday might be cut soon here. But when you're in Madison Square or you're in Indiana and everyone is screaming at you, that's what like a good 3 months of my life was like leading up to that November.
Now, in those situations, do you ever feel like, I mean, we're talking about an intense situation here, but do you ever feel as if your safety is in jeopardy in any moment? Like as a media reporter, do you feel like, oh, I'm getting a little close to the line here, if not crossing it? I need to take a couple steps back, or I need to kind of be a little bit more careful. Do you ever have those moments, or have you ever had those moments?
Yeah, man, because a lot of people just don't like us. And so they would find our addresses. People have emailed me things. People have found out the license plate number on my cars over different years and have threatened to track me. One guy, oh, I'm missing so much stuff. This dude pulled a gun on me last year. That's a real story because his brother got killed and I was in the neighborhood trying to talk to him about what happened and he pulled the gun on me. A homeless guy pulled a knife on me once. A fan outside of Fenway pushed me live on air and I had to push him back. And that's not a good look because I'd have beat him up, but like I can't because I'm on camera. But if you had touched me and let someone come to your job and put their hands on, you know what I mean? Like I've seen and done so many things. I don't say that in an arrogant way, just my life, that I forget a lot of these things. And so one thing I've learned is I have to hold myself accountable. And I'm representing myself and my family and my parents, who I told you guys about. So I try to make good decisions in the moment.
If those stories don't show passion for media from you, I don't know what does. Because that's just crazy hearing it straight up. I mean, I would, all of those events happening like that. I mean, we all love the game of media, but it is, very important to think about sometimes how it's like we do sports media now. We're interested in other areas of media as well, but even in sports media, it's like it's not always the safest thing to do when you put yourself out there, put your words out there, and ultimately put all your work out there for people to either agree with or disagree with. Like it's a very, very tough thing to do.
Brian Windhorst in New York the other day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. That I mean, that perfect example right there is walking out of the arena, and I always think about that too. With just players in general and just anybody. Just if you're in that vicinity around a bunch of fanatics, like let's face it, I mean, people are fanatics. Radicalized within whatever space they're in.
Yeah.
Those kind of situations can definitely be a little bit more dangerous than what's seen on the outside. I mean, that's everybody likes to trash on media members, but it's like they do one of the toughest jobs that exists out in the field of work, quite frankly. I mean, when you're going out there and literally putting your health and safety out there and and risking that just to grab a news story, to grab the headline, and to grab the information which you're relaying to the public. I mean, that takes some courage, and people don't always understand that.
Yeah. I appreciate your appreciation because it
Right.
is a real thing, and I don't think we do it for like pats on the back. But I've seen Wendy get yelled at in Philly and New York, and he's just sitting there being him, and then he'll go on TV and have like 7 hits for Sports Center, NBA Today, First Take, uh, First Things First. Like he's hitting. He's a hit machine. That's what we call him in TV. I hit it 4 and I hit it 5. That man is a hit machine, and but people don't see what he's treated like always in these arenas.
It's always in the comments, right? Like people see everything that happens in the comments, but then you forget, oh yeah, those comments are coming from real people in real life who are willing to say those things on the street sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Florida taught me not to read the comments because they would call me everything you can imagine, and it's the game. These aren't complaints; these are the realities. And when you
Right.
sign up for certain things, you should expect them. You should understand them. Doesn't mean they're right. It just comes with what you signed up for.
Exactly. No, I want to say too before you go, Andrew. I wanted to ask this in addition to Seamus's question too. Obviously, what I'm it's crazy to hear about the guns being pulled on you and stuff. That's insane to hear. But I was also gonna say when you're on those crime scenes, with obviously people, on the run and stuff, that must be some intense fear that you have to deal with as well. And how do you cope with that just in the moment? Do you just try not to think about it? I obviously look when criminals are on the loose or something and you're put in the situation like right there, right on the spot. That must be some intense fear too, I feel. What's that like kind of? And then you go, Andrew, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
I try and stay calm, so I don't really fear hasn't been a part of my psyche because once I get into a fear state, if I did, I probably wouldn't be able to comport myself well in the job. Um, and because of that upbringing I told you about with my father taking me all over the place and coming up in Washington, D.C., like I grew up in the city, but it was a really good neighborhood, and then we moved out to the suburbs. But I was always like a stone's throw away from like things really happening in the city. So I wasn't too far removed from people moving in the fast lane while also, you know, coming up in a really good neighborhood. So fear hasn't been something I've had too much of because of my perspective. There is this understanding of like, mind your business, be polite, mind your business. That tends to work.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's definitely like that's why I said my credit, like everything, that's crazy how you can do that job. And, my respect is given to you because that takes a certain person to be able to, put fear aside even when you're in those situations. And obviously, you already mentioned your upbringing, obviously being in a good area, but going places where bad things happened. And that's just
Mhm.
builds and, makes you strong. And that's why all my respect goes towards you. But Andrew, you continue with your question.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I want to say I respect it a lot, and I want to read the quote that I pulled from your Instagram bio, where you
Mm.
say, "Brave enough to perform and humble enough to prepare." So I understand that before you get out into the field, before you get into the studio, there's a level of preparation
Mhm.
and a level of preparation that needs to take place so that you can perform at your best, at your peak level. Could you comment on that, and then just kind of say what that quote means to you?
Yeah, I think it's confident enough to perform, humble enough to prepare. It's this idea of always being ready to do the work. So I guess a good example, I just ran the Boston Marathon, and that's like 4 months of waking up at 5 a.m. for 6 days a week. And that's the preparation. Like there's that day, right, where you get a medal and you eat good and you drink good with your family. But the 4 months of training in January and February and December, when it is freezing at 5 a.m. and we live on the water, in Swampscott, and it's cold. That's the preparation. I'm humble enough to prepare, but on the day of, I had no nerves. I've done the work. I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? And so with my job, because I'm not like, I'm kind of an outsider in my own gig. Like, I didn't go to journalism school, didn't get in. My grades were not good. I went to West Virginia University, spent way more time partying and playing sports than working on my books. But because of that kind of chip on my shoulder, where I'm going into journalism with kids who went to Syracuse and to Northwestern and to Missouri and to USC, I have to prepare. I have to pour into the data. I have to read over my content, my information. Why did this person get charged? What is their background? Where are they from? What did they do? What are the statutes on this law? You won't catch me unprepared. And because of that, I can perform, I think, with the best of them on any given day. There are people who are better than me, but I can feel like I'm doing the best that I'm able to do because of the preparation, especially with the Celtics. Like, I'm not from here, but I have taken the time to read and do the work. And now I can call Bob Ryan, who I grew up watching, and he will do an interview for me like that. Or, I mean, you name them. And it's because of, I would like to think they respect my work ethic.
For sure, yeah. And then I want to also say, or just ask a question, there's a responsibility in journalism to give news that's factual, that's real, that's truthful. And obviously that preparation comes with it, because you want to go into a newsroom knowing what you're talking about. That way you're also relaying that information to the public in the right way. How do you feel about the importance of providing news that is truthful, that really gives the public the knowledge that they deserve?
Yeah, I think that's the most important tenet of my job, is to just be fact-based. You will not hear my opinion. You won't hear what I think about something, just what happened today. And I get people way smarter than me to talk about it. Those are scholars. Those are investors. Those are whomever is really involved in whatever it is I'm talking about. I get that person to talk about it. But you won't hear what I think. And right now, the times are so polarized between the left and the right. I find it all the more important to just tell people what happened, and you form your own opinion.
That's incredible. I do want to say this. So you kind of stole my next question too. I was going to ask you about the Boston Marathon, obviously, but to add on to that, how was it running the Boston Marathon? What was your experience like running this historical Boston Marathon? And my question is too, as well, to add on to that, is obviously you said you're from DC. So how does that kind of, change your look on the city? You must have a love for the city. Obviously, you reporting journalism here. What was the inspiration kind of too behind running the Boston Marathon, obviously?
Yeah, man. They interviewed me after the race, and I was like, I get Boston strong now. I've been here with my family 7 years, and for 26 miles, they are offering you oranges, Budweisers, Swedish Fish, Bud Lights, you name it, Gatorade, water. So it's like a 26-mile party. And at the end of that 26 miles, I was like, now I get why these people rep each other so hard. And it's unlike any place I've lived. Georgia was close, the way they loved the dogs. I reported on the dogs a lot. But this New England thing, yeah, I got it after that day. And what was it like to run it? It was awesome, because I can't really even explain it, man. It was crazy. It was like one of the best experiences of my life, for sure. There's the physical part, but like, people really love running here, and they just love their own. Like, if you do something for a bigger cause, they'll support you. I had to raise 10,000, and I did it like really quick, because when people found out I was raising money for Children's Hospital. How much you need? 200, I got you. 50, I got you. 20, I got you. 500, I got you. 1,000, I got you. And yeah, it made me love the city more, for sure.
And you mentioned, feeling that Boston strong after running that race, or even during the race, the Boston Marathon. Really seeing how the city embodies that statement. But what are some of the differences in living and covering, sports and all these news stories in which we're talking about? What is the difference between covering a news story, say in the Northeast versus the Southeast, and what are some of the differences in living in the two places as well?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Well, up here we're fast, and that's why I love it. People get on with it. They get over things quick. They talk fast. They have places to go. It's get out of my way because I have somewhere to go. Sometimes I wish people gave each other more like grace and patience and paid like mind to others more. But at the same time, if your wheel falls off, they'll help you in a heartbeat. They might not say thank you when you open the door, but if you need something, they'll help you. Like people here are so genuine. The reputation and stereotypes, they're real. Like on the surface, Boston's cold. People are not like the friendliest. But beneath that surface, I have found people to be incredibly endearing and kind. Like I just met you guys, and I can tell you're like good people. I can just tell.
Thank you.
But on the surface, that FU energy is strong in the Boston region for sure. But I dig it though. Like you don't have to like be kind to me. I'm not tripping. In the South, people are really nice on the surface, but beneath that, you could get a mixed bag for sure. Not to say that you can't get that here, but like in the South, they're like overly pleasant and kind off the bat. And if you're from up here, you should know like something's not right here. I don't know. I've got to read more into this, or I have to dig into this a little bit more. Whereas up here, people will say what they mean and mean what they say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more strong up here. I feel like that. Yeah, they're more bold, honestly.
Well,
Yeah.
that kind of raises another question within me of, what is your favorite part of the Boston experience since arriving in the city? And if I'm not mistaken, you correct me if I'm wrong here, you arrived 7 years ago, right? About 7 years ago in the Boston area. Do you believe you've carved yourself out a space in Boston? What are some of the more, looking at the entire Boston scene of everything, what are some of your most favorite things about Boston, period?
It's so diverse, and people think that it's not. It's just segregated. Like the Cape Verdes over here, the Italians over here, the Irish over here, the Haitians over there, the Africans are down here, the Latinos are up here. Like it's just kind of segregated, but it has everything. And I love that because where I grew up, we had everything. And we all loved on each other and joked on each other. And if you couldn't make jokes about somebody, like you were going to have a problem. And all my friends were of different races, and we made fun of each other. And that's just how we showed love to each other. And up here, like the guys I play basketball with are all from Eastie, and they're Asian and they're white. That this dude Prosciutto Poppy, who's like popping on the internet, we play basketball with him all the time. And he's not as good as he was before. He used to play a lot more, but the comedian thing that they do. So yeah, I love how diverse it is. I love how sincere people are. I love how hardworking they are. People get to it. They get to work. There's a huge focus level up here that I admire, and it brings the best out of me. Like Boston has definitely brought the best out of me because I'm around hard workers. The education and intellect level, we have a saying in journalism, keep it simple, stupid, kiss. With our writing, I do not have to keep it simple. I'm not going to talk over people here. They will understand. In Florida, sometimes I had to simplify my stories in a way that like everyone could understand, like to a third grader, which is a general journalism tenet. But here, people get it. it's because of the influence of the education. And then the sports, I think I've traveled with all of them except the Bruins, and the passion here is can't touch it. Game 7, Warriors, Celtics. Wick is like a professional friend. Like after the marathon, he came over and talked to my family and kicked it with us for a few. Yeah, I mean, I've built these like real relationships in the city with players, with fans. So I dig that to no end. And people here never think they're out of it. Like a good game in the Garden, they will applaud hard work. Even if you're losing, just try. And I think that's emblematic of the city, right? Like go hustle. That's why IT was loved. Go hustle, and I dig that. And then with the Sox, there is nothing like a good Sox game in October. Nothing. I went for a play-in game against the Yankees, and Fenway is rocking. You could feel the building rocking. And my son is like on my shoulders. And I was like, you don't know what this is yet, but you will look back. And so like, the sports here, it is dope. Those are my favorite things. And then the food is fire, and we love the water, and I swim. I wake up in the morning, go swimming, and you know what I mean? Like, it's a beautiful area. Beautiful. If you like the outdoors, you can't beat it.
That's incredible.
And speaking on the coverage of sports, we've been talking a lot about your work in the field and around different stories, but you've obviously covered a fair amount of sports as well, a lot of sports. What are some of the differences in covering a sports event versus covering any of the other events you cover, whether it's, going on the field, like you were saying, you're next to junkies, like this guy, he's pulled out of his truck and you're just trying to make sense of everything seen. What are some of the differences between those moments and just simply covering a sports game?
So like news in sports, the difference?
Yeah. So covering news in the field, like say you're going out and you're basically showing up on the scene at what is going to be the next news story versus, I'm going to the Garden tonight to watch the Celtics, to watch the Bruins, and then I'm going to be covering that game. What are some of the differences in that process, I should say?
So if I'm covering a game, it's kind of like covering breaking news in a way. So breaking news, you have to watch it, process it quick, and speak about it, kind of like I talked about earlier. When you're watching a game, you have to really follow the game trends. Basketball specifically, it's a game of runs. It's just momentum. So when I'm talking on TV, I really have to just capture the emotions behind the run, because both teams will have them, unless you're a bad team. And we don't really have bad teams in Boston, depending on the year. So, the Pats and the Sox, give or take, and the Bruins these days. But you're following game trends and emotions, and I'm conveying what the feeling was inside of the building. And then you have to be paying close attention because you're going to post-game press conferences. And you don't want to ask a dumb question. You want to ask a question that's thought-provoking. I think the best person at that right now is Gary Washburn. If you guys ever listen to a post-game press conference and you listen to the questions Gary asks, they provoke certain types of answers and responses. Gary asked a question of Joe Mazzulla this past postseason, and Joe said something about you got to go into that dark space. And I was like, Joe, this is so dramatic, dog. But also, that's Joe. All right? Like, we went to college together. That's Joe. But the point is, like, ask good questions. So pay close attention, ask good questions. They're very similar, I guess I'd say. They're very similar. Because I have to ask the police chief an intelligent question about whatever homicide it might be. Or the mayor, I have to ask her a good question about any initiative that she's working on. And I have to ask coaches and players good questions about what just happened.
To add on there about Gary Washburn, I think what the best trait about Gary, he's just a realist. Like he doesn't really care to pander, right? We see a lot of media members kind of pandering to organizations and pandering to a certain view. Gary is straight up front. I mean, seriously, every time he speaks, whether it's on the Big Three podcast for CLNS or he's in the media room asking questions, he's just a realist. Like that's what I've always appreciated about Gary. I wouldn't say I don't want to say it gets him into trouble. Definitely it gets him some comments from time to time from people, but I mean, it's all worth it to be that guy in the meeting. So I love that you brought up Gary Washburn there because he's also somebody. Griffin, let's write this down. We want Gary Washburn here on this program. Let's make it public. We got to get Gary on here on this program. But ultimately, your NBC bio mentions despite being from the DC area, the Celtics and Red Sox have given you career highlight moments. What would you pinpoint as some of those career highlight moments? From covering some of the Boston sports teams, such as the Red Sox, Celtics, and even Boston Bruins?
The Bruins, when they retired the first black NHL player, his jersey, Willie O. I can't recall his last name, but that was awesome. And they raised his banner up there, so it's hanging in the garden. Celtics highlight moments would be Tatum dropping like 55 2 years ago. Do you all remember that game?
Was it against this? He's done this quite a few times. He's dropped 50 a couple times. Was it against the Sixers in the playoffs? It could have been against the Sixers in the playoffs, the Nets, the Wizards. Done a couple Spurs.
The Spurs dropped 60 against.
Yeah, that was a 60 piece. Aaron Nesmith was awesome that night. Nobody remembers. Aaron Nesmith was also awesome that night. Also, Willie O'Ree. Willie O'Ree. Just looked it up here. Yeah. Willie
O'Ree. You. I was thinking I didn't want to misspeak. So that would be it for the Bruins. With the Celtics, that Tatum night was awesome because everyone was at the game, and I've gotten to this point where I can just say, Edelman, come do this interview, and he'll do it. Or Kraft was at the game and jumps on and does an interview. The McCourty twins at the game, come do an interview. And those just feel like these real Boston moments where you've got these figures in the city who have crafted their own space. And I just love doing things for the city that way, like making it feel like it's Boston centric. You know what I mean? So that was one of those moments when Tatum did that. Sox. Yeah, between that game, I talked about the play-in game against the Yankees in Fenway. And also I've seen them beat the Yankees in series and gone down to New York. And it's a lot of fun traveling to New York and watching Boston teams win. That is always fun.
Definitely a great moment. Andrew, what about you, though?
Oh, and then Pats, when Brady came back. That was cool.
Got to mention the Pats. It's like I totally forgot about the Patriots. Like down there in Foxborough, a little away from the city, of course, down 95, but got to mention the Pats too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You're for new guys for now, yeah.
Yeah. So my question for you now, obviously, going back to the Celtics topic, you were at the 741 pop-up event, obviously, with Jaylen Brown. How is that like in the atmosphere there? Obviously, you talked about it before we started the podcast too with all these Celtics super fans, but how was that at the pop-up?
Pop-up was dope because people stood in the rain and waited. Jaylen said something like that when I interviewed him. And I mean, he is so tied and invested in the city that anybody that comes to his event is going to be a purist and a loyalist. So they were diehard Celtics fans and diehard JB fans, which I think brings it. Every fan has a different kind of aesthetic. And so he welcomed and initiated a certain type of atmosphere that was really pleasant, positive, and community-based. So that was a lot of fun. And I built a relationship with the people in this camp that have allowed us to kind of work together from time to time. We did something 2 weeks ago where he went to different schools in the city. And they didn't call any other reporter for that. They just called me and said, "Hey, Mal, we're doing these pop-ups at 5 different schools in the city. They don't know he's coming, but we want you to come." And so anytime I can work with people who are promoting positivity, I try and amplify it. Like that, I feel is my responsibility. And Jalen does that. And because of that, we're able to have some overlap. Whether it's me or his foundation and his mom, we are kind of able to synchronize our combined values, I think, in ways that benefit people in a good way. That's the goal, at least. That's the goal.
You've
Yeah,
been to
for
TD
sure.
Garden many, many times, and of course, we hear some of the best NBA stories come from the back hallways of
Mhm.
arenas, right? Just off the public record. So, from your perspective, have you had any of those moments of seeing a story that might be off public record that you witnessed with your own two eyes in the back hallways of TD Garden, or even out on the court at TD Garden, that people may not have seen, but you saw it yourself and went, "Hmm, that's a notable moment." Those are two people right there that people might want to note are talking to each other right now. Have you had any of those stories over times of seeing some of those back hallway moments between players, coaches, or executives?
Yeah, plenty. Plenty. The first that come to mind would be Princess Kate and Prince William. People, I
Mhm.
think a lot might not have known that they were there, but I was sitting like right across from them. They were on the floor, and I was like one row back, and they're sitting front row with the governor and Wick. I mean, that's literally royalty. So that was kind of cool and something that like uniquely is a garden moment because it's an intimate setting, right? Like Foxborough, Gillette, people are far out, they're spread out. If you're a VIP of sorts, you're definitely up in a booth. At the garden, we're all in here huddled together watching the arena. I've seen LeBron a couple times backstage, and that's cool, you know, because he's Bron. He is the best of our time. Um, someone else just came to mind. I forgot who it was. Oh yeah, I mean I love trap music, so I've seen Gucci Mane there a couple times, front row, and that's crazy because he's Gucci Mane.
I don't know if
One
it's a
time,
joke or not, but I believe he's Jalen Brown's cousin. Like, I don't know if that was a joke a while ago or if that's true story or not, but always shows up in the number 7 jersey, Gucci Mane, if I'm not mistaken. He's always
rappers
repping
show up.
JB.
Yeah, rappers show up for Jalen. So I dapped up Big Poppy a couple times. We've gotten to know each other at games. Governor Baker used to live in my neighborhood, so we see each other at games. One time I was talking to this rapper named Shmino who pulled up to the most recent 741 event, and we were just kicking it, watching hoop together. ASAP Ferg, I've met him a few times at games, and like people are super approachable, like super approachable. I guess because you're there for a reason, and it's all about how you carry yourself too. But the garden certainly brings and attracts a lot of people because they play so late into the year.
Yeah. Can I say something too before you go, Andrew? I'm so sorry, Andrew.
Mhm. No,
But
not a problem. You're good.
yeah, but I want to say, even obviously, I'm an intern for the Sea Dogs, and obviously they might not be at that peak level yet, but the fan inside me is all hyped up. But you have to keep your cool with them too. Like you have to really, because they're humans too, and that's what I've
Mhm.
realized from working this job. They're humans too, and they want to be treated like a human. I just it's funny. I talked to Chris Murphy, who is a Red Sox player, just about Sea Dogs biscuits, which they sell at the Sea Dogs game. So it's like they want to talk about other stuff as well. And I think
True.
that's the thing where it kind of, from a fan, you go up and you rush them. And obviously, speaking to you talk to them with a more like, personable, mature aspect, I feel like, too, at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's people get a feeling for you quickly. You know, like we can read body language and we can read energy too. Energies. I'm big on energy, and I think if you have good energy, people pick up on it. So like, I interviewed Ed Sheeran last month, and that went crazy viral, and it was so random. But he was shooting a video up here in Ipswich, and I think he read my energy, which is why his security didn't push me off. They were pushing so many people that day. and just being regular, I guess. I don't want to overcomplicate it. Just be decent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you speak on energy, and you mentioned the Celtics community and how they showed up for the 741 pop-up shop, and being on the streets and being involved in that Celtics community and the fans. You know, how have you grown to love them or appreciate them, or what is that experience like with that Celtics fan community?
I think it's good. On my end, it's good. I don't know if they feel a way about me. I highly doubt it. I wouldn't think that large of
Mhm.
myself to think they think much about me. But
For
I
sure.
think the fan base is incredible. I mean, they show up and show up and show up and pay obscene amounts for tickets because they're not cheap. Like no Celtics game is cheap these days, and
Oh,
they keep showing up. Um, and then there's a subculture of super fans too, which is really cool, and they
Mhm.
give a lot of personality to the Garden. So I mean, when the Garden's booming, and you got Portnoy front row yelling at whoever, and some guy in the fifth row who's saying crazy, it's special. The fans there are
For
special.
sure. For
that's
sure.
incredible. I just have a couple more questions, and I think Seamus has a couple as well too. But speaking about that too with the Celtics super fans, again, we talked about it before this podcast. But what's your favorite thing or energy from Celtics fans? Obviously, you and I met from a Celtics fan standpoint. I showed you my Celtics tattoo, and we
Yeah.
obviously had that interview. But what's the energy? You talked about it a lot too, but how is that atmosphere? Do you enjoy it, or do you have any funny stories you could tell us with Celtics fans because you're around it all the time, obviously?
Uh, Celtics in four. Celtics in four. You hear it so often, and the arrogance of Celtics fans is crazy. Like I think I've covered so many Celtics fan stories that I just know what the fans are going to say before they say it. It's like Drew Holiday is going to crush this guy. KP is going to do this. Nobody's stopping. The trash talking is top tier. It's like Boston and New York. New York's a little more vile. Um, and I just appreciate the bravado because it's earned. Like the team allows them to talk the way they talk. What I don't like is sometimes is they will rag on guys when they don't do certain things. Like after a loss, Tatum just went from the best guy to people say crazy things about JT.
Yeah, all the time.
And it's like, yo, like this guy does an awful lot. And see what would happen if he weren't wearing the jersey. It would be tough. We will find out next year, right? And I've heard people say crazy things outside of the Garden on Canal and Causeway after a loss. And I haven't liked that because you said it. They're regular people. They're humans. And I've gotten to know their families now and the mothers and the fathers. And like, you think they're not trying? You think they're giving less effort than they can? You think everyone has a great day at work? Like his 7 points might be the day that you showed up to work 2 hours late for whatever reason. But because he works in an arena, you can rag on him when he doesn't show. That's my perspective. Other people might say, "Well, we paid you 300 M's, so yeah, you need to show up every game." So there's a dichotomy there and a balance. But overall, I think the Celtics like loyalty and love is to be admired.
And staying on the topic of the Celtics, you mentioned next season we'll get to see the Celtics without Jason Tatum repping the Celtic green all season. Well, hopefully he'll be repping the green on the bench. Hopefully he'll be still sitting in on games. But in terms of playing on court, Jason Tatum won't be around next season. How do you believe the Celtics will navigate this time without Tatum? And do you believe it's possible that this time without Tatum could actually spark more interest within the fan base, knowing there are a couple of intricacies around the team that will be changing with Tatum out of the lineup, aside
Mhm.
from, compared to the last 2 years where not much was changing, not much was to be said about mostly dominant team the last 2 years. It was about, winning the finals, making the finals, just getting to that point. But now it feels like there's a little bit more of a not necessarily rebuilding process in place, but a retooling process for the Celtics. Do you believe that will spark a little bit more interest in the fan base or work negatively against that? And how do you believe in general will the Celtics, how will they navigate this time period, both the fan base and the team?
Oof. I don't think it's going to ignite more of a fever pitch for the fans, but I do think that the diehards are going to dig in deeper. I think if you love the Celtics, you're going to be all in on player development, on how the team synchronizes around one another, and you're going to be looking for areas that the team is improving. So whether it is transition defense or the emergence of Peyton as a starter or Derek White's insistence in driving a little bit more rather than shooting more, will the front office decide to back off a little bit from the analytics? Will we start to see a change in what the offensive system looks like, given that your best three-point shooter is not there any longer? How does that influence the team? And I think if you're really a fan of the Celtics, you're going to want to see how these things play out, because when someone is gone, other guys get better. Look at the Knicks anytime Jalen Brunson goes to the bench. I think the Celtics now are definitely going to have to develop in ways they wouldn't have had to without JT. And I think that bodes well for the team, for the coach. Anytime you are without something, other things get stronger. Like if your left hand breaks, your right will get stronger, and vice versa. And the foundation of the C's is so strong between the front office, with Brad. They're going to have a competing team. It's not like they're not going to compete. So then I think they're going to want to see how much can we maximize out of what we have. And with that, I think it's going to be really compelling, because the East is not deep. It's not deep. So then it's just like, how much fun can we have with this team that fights? And do they fight? Because if they don't fight, that'll turn people off. If they do fight with what they have, people are going to love them. Yeah, just the same. You know what I mean? That's my thought.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Any last questions for you guys before I ask my final question?
Well, no, I'll rattle off a couple here that might be non-Celtics related. Now, you've covered two major hurricanes, Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria down in Florida.
You guys did your research.
Of course. So just like you, we got to do our research here. But covering those two major hurricanes, what is the process in preparing to go and cover those events? And how do, looking at major storms like that, it's dangerous. You talked about the line of work you were doing earlier. There's a lot of dangerous items out there to meet in the world. But what is the process in determining how everyone can both stay safe and get the best coverage during a massive storm like a hurricane, when you're right in the center of it and covering the major event and the major hurricane? How does everyone stay safe, and how does that preparation go about, and how does that process go about?
Yeah. I so much appreciate you guys' interest in just the things that I think interest all of us. So yeah, covering hurricanes are my favorite. They were my favorite thing to cover outside of the NBA Finals, because they're nuts and it's not cold and it is pouring, and that's where you get to see how good a reporter is, to me, because you're in the elements and you have to keep your head, and you're dealing with 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and not a light rain but a pouring rain, and a wind that is swirling. It's not this way or that way, it is both ways. It's converging, and you're trying to find shelter in places like garages or actual storm shelter centers that are set up by local governments, where you are literally, I've slept in rooms across from governors and first responders and the National Guard. because we can't go back home. So like you're deployed basically for like 48 to 72 hours or however long the storm lasts. So those are my favorite because like the electricity is usually shut at a certain point and you're in the town and it's all dark. You could step on a live wire, so you got to be smart. And people are going through it. So like my best storytelling is in those moments where it's like, I'm just telling what people need. People need like power, or they lost their whole crib. I've talked to a lot of people who like lost mansions or little houses. Your house is your house. Doesn't matter the size. It's where you lay your head at night. And then there are these amazing stories of like help, where people come in from other towns and they're like trying to supply aid. And so you see the best of humanity during the worst of times. So I have loved every hurricane that I've covered. And they were all in Florida. And I'm completely comfortable in a storm for sure.
I gotta say
and the way,
that's a
go ahead,
dream job
Seamus.
for me, covering a hurricane or even a tornado. It's like, I don't want to see a tornado right next to my house, but if I could see one out in the middle of nowhere in Kansas, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
It's crazy, man.
And I like to say, like, the way you just explained that story, like, I honestly felt like I traveled there. You know, I mean, I feel like I could
I agree.
feel the rain. You know,
Yeah.
like the downpour, all that stuff. And you know, you talked about storytelling. Like, where did that love of storytelling kind of stem from? Because it fascinates me. It's beautiful to see how a story can provoke an emotion, can convey something deeper than just the on the surface. So, where did that love of storytelling come from?
Respect, man. So much respect. It's like, I believe as humans, like we're so much more alike than we are different. And people at Washington, D.C. get in the way of that. But like we all want these simple things, like to treat people how we want to be treated. We all want to feel affirmed. We all want to succeed. We all want to give love and be loved. Like we all want to smile and put smiles on others. Like life is like super simple. But the thing is, a lot of us can't connect that way. And I do think I've been given this gift to connect with people. Like I think it's just a gift. And because of that, I feel like part of my role with this gift is to show people from the trailer parks that I've worked in, to the projects that I've worked in, to the brownstones in Back Bay, that like we're all pretty similar. That's my little thing. That's my thing. That's my little contribution to society, is to bridge that gap. And I get to do it through stories. And you got accountants, you've got everything. There's all types of industries. And this one, I can merge the crossroads of life in a way that other people can't. And so I just constantly try and sew that line in my stories of like, this is a human. Forget the race when you can. Forget the gender. It's just a person. Feel for that person, good or bad. Their success is your success. Their loss is your loss. And I think it's just empathy. And I love documentaries. In stories. Like Scorsese is my favorite director. So I just grew up on like good movies and good stories, and my dad too, you know.
Do you have any a favorite Boston movie? You know, because we have a lot of those, and we know Joe Mazzulla loves his. He likes to
Yeah,
connect the movies, and I know he used The Town and a couple other movies to explain his you know, his connection to the sport.
for sure, for sure. Black Mass is a good one. The Town is a good one. The Departed's probably my favorite.
Parts, beautiful, yeah, great movie.
Yeah, The Departed is, yeah, the character synopsis there. And then, you know, I always had an appreciation, not appreciation, but I understood, you know, the dealings of the Bulgers of the world and the Winter Hill Gang, and now I go work in parts of Somerville, and I've
Right,
gotten Murrow awards. I got a Murrow award for reporting that we did on the arrest, the arrest of Whitey. Yeah, the arrest of Whitey.
Mhm. Yeah, and that must be cool too to like be in like Boston, which is such a historical city and has so many roots and so many things to kind of talk about, you know what I mean? And to be a part of that history and have a
Mm.
say in something like that, like how does that make you feel?
It's awesome because Boston is really small. I mean, it's all subjective based on where we come from, but me coming from DC, where we've got the Capitol, the president, the White House, like it's bigger. When I came to Boston, my mind frame was I wanted to be somebody in this city, and that's still my mind frame. Like I feel like I can be a big dog in this city because why not?
For sure.
Because like my city is just a little bit bigger, it moves faster. I think I can get this. The thing is, Boston is extremely territorial, and so like I had to understand the pronunciation of a Worcester or a Haverhill, not Haverhill. You feel me? Taunt.
Our guy David is from there, actually. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. So, how do I feel being in the city? I feel like it's super small, it's super connected, and it's a lot of little towns that move and operate a little bit differently, but there is a similar DNA.
Right.
That's awesome.
You know, and speaking on Boston, before we close out here, from your perspective as a reporter right now in the Boston area, what is the biggest story in need of attention right now? Any news story out there? And this answer can get very candid. What is the biggest story out there that needs attention right now from your perspective?
Hmm. Y'all are good. Y'all are good. I would hire you guys.
Hey, help! Man, we our resume. We got them right here.
I hear you. I think the biggest story that needs attention is the wealth gap. It's enormous. Like the story between the haves and the have-nots here is huge, and especially when you get into like the racial nuances of how those have played out. But I can say that there's this huge gap of like the well-to-do neighborhoods and areas, which are beautiful and fine and hardworking, and also like the downtrodden, which are also beautiful and fine and hardworking. But the lives they live are so different, and there is a lot more have-nots in the Boston area because the cost of living is pretty high for a lot of, comparatively speaking, like Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland, Cali. These are really expensive places to live. And I just see the difference in how they live regularly. And I think it deserves more attention.
Well, I want to say this last question too before we close out as well. Obviously, I already mentioned it. I go to school for sports management. I do broadcasting, and I'm an intern for the Sea Dogs. And hard work is what gets you places, obviously. But do you have any inspiring words for people trying to achieve a job, obviously in the sports industry or reporting and journalism? Do you have any inspiring words and advice for people such as me going into this industry and how we could, get to places where you've even been at? What advice could you give to people like me?
Yeah. I'm slightly reluctant to give advice because what worked for me may not work for another person. But I can say, in being a spectator and a viewer of the industry at large, I think the most important thing you can do is be you. You guys talked about how authentic Gary Washburn is. He's just him. If you do something you see other people doing, you won't be as good at it. And you just have to do it however you do it. And you have to find your way. You have to find your swag. That is, I think, the most important thing. Find your pocket, because it's there. It's in you. You have it. You just have to do it. Don't try too hard to force anything else. Like, my man is clearly a Celtics fan and a Cardinals fan. And I don't know how the Cardinals thing works, or if he just likes red hats.
He's
but
from
that's
St.
his
Louis.
thing.
I'll say it right now. I'm from St. Louis. From St. Louis. So gotta
Wow.
rep the city. No, trust me. I mean, the Celtics, the Patriots, particularly. Now I gotta say the Red Sox, Bruins. I'm rolling with my Cardinals. I'm rolling with my Blues. I gotta say that. You know, if the Red Sox and the Bruins, they're doing well over in the Eastern Conference or over in the American League. It's like, all right, you know, I'll root for the Red Sox over the Yankees. But when it comes to who I want to win the World Series and Stanley Cup, give me the Cardinals and Blues all day. Hometown team since a baby. I mean, my dad literally, like, I was the baby with the, maybe not the earmuffs, but like back then it was like, no, don't bother with the earmuffs. We'll just bring them without the earmuffs. A little baby in the stands, like that was me in St. Louis, that Cardinals game, straight up.
That's dope.
So that's the whole story behind the cap here.
The Cardinals, yeah,
And that's
that's dope.
And that's the thing that's so beautiful about sports too. It's like there's so many different stories and connections and different ways you look at stories, but
Mhm.
and it kind of connects everyone. And I feel like
Mhm.
you talked about that pay gap too. It's like, yes, obviously that's a big important thing. It's like, but it's nice to see that people come together when it's the Celtics fans, and that brings people together in it.
Big
You know what
time.
I mean? And like and how and I know we're gonna keep going, but like, how have you seen sports impact your life? Not just from like just playing basketball on the court and just like in those things. It's like it's bigger than that. And how has it impacted you? Not just the reporting, but just life in general.
Reporting on sports, how has it impacted me?
No, more so not even the reporting on sports, but just like sports in general, and just because I know you said you played sports growing up and all that, and how is
Yeah,
that gave you maybe lessons, perspectives, everything in between.
for sure. Yeah, probably the same ways it has you guys, assuming you guys have played sports growing up, whether
Right.
recreational or competitively. Sports gave me everything that I have. I believe that, of course, my family, but the competitive nature of sports and playing
Mm.
in high school and on the college level, I just took it to journalism because, like I said, I didn't go to school for it. I didn't get in. And so
Mhm.
I'm still competing. Like, my colleagues are great. They're very good. Like, the reporters I'm working with right now are very good. But I'm competing with them because I want to be the
Right.
best. That's just the fact. And they should want to be
Nice.
the best. And if they don't want to be the best, maybe that's a different discussion. But
Here comes Malcolm Johnson.
yeah, I think they all want to be the best, and I like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want people around me that don't want to push for that, and so I'm still competing. And until I leave this business, I'll be competing. I want to be the top dog in it, and that's all sports. That's all competition. And
That fires
I'm not
me
a
up.
hater either. I can admire somebody else that gets 20 and 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bar.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough room and at the time money in it for all of us. And when the well dries up, pivot. Maybe pivot before it dries up, but
Right. Before you get to the paint,
you feel me?
That's awesome.
Respect.
That's awesome. Well, again, I wanted to say thank you so much. From this whole podcast, and we could go on for hours, and I would love to have you on again sometime because I'm sure we have billions of more questions to ask you too. But I want to say thank you so much. I learned really so much from how you have to control yourself in those environments. Obviously, like I understand, I went through some tragic things with my brother and stuff, and it's hard, and having to report stuff like that is tough. And just the fact of, honestly, even with the sports and everything, but I also learned you gotta love what you do. For me, my little thing is sports, and from working in sports, I've noticed that I love it and it doesn't seem like a job, so that's what you really got to find. But I wanted to say, and I learned so much from you today, and I wanted to appreciate you again so much for your time and coming on here to tell everyone some stories, and we'd love to have you back on again. Thank you so much, Malcolm.
Yeah. Thank you.
If I could say anything, like, you guys seem like just the kindest young people, and it stood out when I first met you. And now I've gotten to meet your colleagues, and all you guys had great questions. You were inquisitive. You didn't like drown each other out when the other person was speaking. you defer to the other person. You guys obviously have respect for each other. But something that stood out throughout the duration of this interview, and even when we first met, was just the level of humility and sincerity. So, yeah, thank you guys for sure.
Thank you so much.
For sure.
Thank you guys, everyone, for watching.